You are watching a new series from Tactical Enlightenment, Companions in Blood, in which we get you closer to the action and join the elite companions from my campaign in small but fierce battles across a variety of scenarios. Now, can a small army of 40 men take on an army of 500? Can they siege a keep? Can you actually perform tactics with this small of an army? Well, stay tuned and see. Welcome back again to another episode of Tactical Enlightenment. Our YouTube channel is dedicated to showing you huge battles in Bannerlord and then giving you the tactical advice. Actually, you know what? We are going to do some tactics in this series, but we're not actually going to be showing you huge battles. That's because this is the start of a new mini-series. As you can tell, we don't have a huge army. In fact, I have an army of 40 men, but this is not a normal army of 40 men. Our entire army is composed of companions. For those not familiar with it, we will do a very slight recap here. This is essentially the main character. Now, this guy's actually the grandson, some 70 years into this campaign, of the original character. And as you can see, he's basically a bona fide axe-murdering destroyer of worlds. He's basically maxed out in virtually all of the combat abilities that you're going to see me use this guy. He's deadly on foot. He's deadly at range with javelins. He destroys people with a pole arm on horse. He destroys people with chopsticks. This guy is essentially a bona fide Delta 6 savage badass, and I skimped a little bit on these skills down here. Now, the rest of the army, frankly, is composed of very similar guys like this. Here's one of his uncles. This guy's actually a lot older than Zuvan, but as you can see, age hasn't tarnished his skills. Of course, that's one of the unrealistic parts of Bannerlord, is as you get older, your skills actually improve. Unlike real life, I can assure you, I don't hit a softball as far today as when I was 30 years old. I will not share my age with you. You can just I'll just let you guys know that I'm considerably older than most people watching this. So this guy, again, he has supreme athleticism, throwing, and two-handed, and that's his primary job on the battlefield, right? You can actually see he has a decent steward skill set here, but a lot more common is like his sister here, who are most of these characters are frankly dumb as a rock. They're not philosophers, but we don't need them to be, right? We can have them separate philosophy from war, just like they're going to separate heads from bodies. Now, not every single person in this army is badass like this, although the majority of them do have skills in the 250 to 300 range. I want to show a few that are not. So this gal here, you can see she's practically a minor. She just came of age, and she's working her skill set up. In fact, you can see we were gearing her up to be more of a steward and leader of men and I guess and women. So the main thing for you to understand is that this army is very advanced, very powerful. You know, not every single person is maxed in this army, but for a lot of people, these kind of skills would be like off the charts for some of their characters. We got this through a very, very late game campaign. This is not typical, and it's important to understand that this is not a normal Bannerlord army. Now, that said, we're going to have some fun with these guys. We're going to challenge harder and harder targets and see what 40 guys who are totally stacked in Bannerlord can handle. Here's another example I want to show you real quick, just because I'm changing his structure. Ordinarily, this guy rides a horse, spears guys like a fucking badass, but we've taken his horse from him, right? We've told him he's joining us plebes here on the ground, but as you can see, he's got plenty of athleticism. He's not quite maxed, but with throwing skills and a one-handed weapon and a big shield, and of course elite armor, this guy is going to help our infantry. I just noticed that we didn't have a lot of infantry for this series, and so I wanted him on foot. Now, you're not going to have a badass army unless they're equipped in a badass manner. And this is, of course, Zuvan. He's got some of the best armor in the game, right? We also have custom weapons and large bags of Jarls or other very, very potent ranged weapons, etc. So here's just another example, right? We have like legendary gear in a lot of the different slots, and that makes this army particularly ferocious, right? This is... if there was such a thing, I would happily challenge this 40 badass companions in Bannerlord to somebody else's 40, and it would be a very interesting brawl. You can see, you know, masterwork, badass tier 6 axes, usually noble bows, and then this is very common as well. Basically, the best quivers you can possibly find in the game. Now, I'm pointing this out in particular because in this series, this is going to be very useful. This gal here has 66 arrows, and that's before any battlefield bonuses. That means her, with I think she's 330 bow skills. This gal is basically like fucking the most incredible archer on the field. She's got more arrows than anybody else. She lights them up at range, and then if they're dumb enough to get close to her, she's got, what, 330 athletics and 330 two-handed skill, right? She's a badass. Now, she is wearing this stupid helm. In fact, I'm going to change this out because in this series, right, a lot of our characters are going to be taking more damage, and that reminds me, where's Griff? This fucking guy insisted on wearing this fucking stinky-ass bear armor for the last 6 years. We're telling him, and it's not terrible, but we're telling him, you finally got to take that piece of shit off. And for this series, we know you're going to be assaulted. We know you're going to be under duress. We're giving him about the best armor you can acquire in the game. We just acquired this drop relatively recently in a huge battle against the Khazate, and we have other nice pieces of armor here that over the course of this series, I will probably upgrade some of the armor of some of the companions here. That said, again, the vast majority of these characters have either a legendary or some other high, very powerful set of army. Or armor. Now, they also have custom weapons. The original character in this campaign was a smith, and so he developed probably 30 or 40 very high-end weapons. Of course, some of them are just masterworks, like this gal has a super long masterwork javelin, or excuse me, masterwork polearm. And again, you could see that not only does she have a really good bow, but she's also running out there with, what, 69 arrows, right? So this is some pretty lethal stuff, and I imagine either, if it's not like very high-end armor, it's like the next best thing. All right, so without further ado, we're going to take this group of 40. Now, what's nice about this is I can basically pick and choose where I fight, and this is why. Look at their speed. And this is even with a herding penalty. We're still moving at 6.3 pace, and that's because we have a small army. So this guy here, right before the episode, I got kind of close to him and hit record. We're going to run down this guy here and have our inaugural fight with these 40 guys. Now, that should tell you something right away. This army of 133 is running from us. They don't want anything to do with our 40. So they outnumber us more than 3-1, and they are heading for the hills. We're going to, of course, use normal player damage this whole series. I do have the RTS mod working at the moment, which means if my main character, Zuvan, gets killed, we'll simply be able to take over one of the other companions. But I don't think that's going to be a factor, at least in this first battle here. Let's take a peek at this guy's troops, and they're fairly ghetto. I'll be trying to kind of rate the different armies that we're fighting in this series, just sort of looking at them, taking a glance, and using my intuition. And I would say compared to a normal Bannerlord army, I'm going to say this is a 3. This is a below average army. He's got very few strong troops and a lot of scrubby troops. So without further ado, into battle we go. Now, this first episode, I'm actually not going to use a whole lot of tactics. I don't think a whole lot of tactics will be necessary. I will start to divide some of these units properly and explain kind of my strategy here. My overall strategy is to do a lot of kiting. If you're not familiar with kiting, kiting is effectively the process where you move back as the enemy moves towards you. And as you do that, as you move back, you typically spread out your units. So I can give you kind of an idea here. So if the 1st Division, we started to kite, let's just say we started like this, right? With most of our troops kind of somewhat close together. As the enemy approaches us, what we're going to do is start to spread out. I'm going to start to take our archers and move them back here, and the skirmishers and move them back there. A lot of times, of course, the cavalry is going to be running around because a moving target's harder to kill. It'll be much harder for the enemy to kill these moving targets. But as the enemy attacks us, what I want is to sort of have different units spread out so we don't just all get ganged up at the same time, right? The enemy's probably going to be coming in into the big Zerg, and if we're spread out like this, it's going to be a lot easier for us to defend and survive. So I'm going to position a few more captains here. The 2nd is going to be Cav. The 1st is going to be sort of shock troop infantry. But it's important to understand that all of our troops, all of them, have some sort of ability to kill at range, right? Most of them have throwing, especially the guys that are going to be in the infantry. Remember, that's the guy who I told you previously he was a cavalryman. He can throw javelins like a badass. This is a common theme in our army, and of course that's going to help us kill the enemy, right? Before they even get to us, they're going to be absolutely pounded by ranged weapons, pounded by bows, and then when they finally do get toe-to-toe with us, they're going to wish they just stayed away. So without further ado, into battle we go here. I'm not actually going to do a whole lot of strategy in this battle because I think this is going to be a complete massacre. We have very high level troops. You can tell the power bar there at the top. This battle we're actually favored to win. That's not going to be a common theme in the future, but at least in this battle we are absolutely going to pulverize this force here. I'm not actually going to do a huge amount of fighting in this battle. I'm going to do a little bit probably because some parts will be necessary, but I don't think it's going to be all that important. So just noticing where the enemy's positioning here, we are going to get our archers up on this hill. We're also going to get the 8th Corps. And again, don't confuse like the cav divisions with units that don't have ammunition. All of our units are deadly at range. There's like 2 or 3 companions in our entire army that does not have lethal ranged weapons. There's like 1 or 2 cavalrymen that all they have is like a 2-handed sword, a 1-handed sword, and a polearm, right? But that is the exception. Most of them are absolutely lethal at range. In fact, we can probably win this whole battle without even coming to grips in melee. We could just kite this enemy completely to death. Now, I'm going to use shield walls a lot just because that'll protect these infantrymen, right? They got these very strong shields, and of course it's going to protect us from the absolutely overwhelming amount of ammunition fire that we're going to face in this series. You can see the enemy guys, I can't even kill them because they're getting killed so fast by our troops. Again, they have the same or better throwing skill than I do, and so these guys are going to be getting absolutely skewered by everything from javelins to arrows and crossbow bolts, etc. I'm actually just going to work on the horse archers just so this battle is a little quicker than it might ordinarily be. And I kind of wade in here and kill a few guys here and there, but honestly, I don't have to do a damn thing in this battle. We'll do some close-ups. We'll do some zooming in. In fact, let's send the horse here, right? Full attack, like Braveheart. We'll send these guys in, and we'll send in the 1st Infantry. These guys are dying to get their swords on the enemy. Now, they should throw javelins, right? You can see them starting to throw javelins, and when these guys throw javelins, understand they're not throwing it like a woodsman or something like that. These guys are throwing destructive, shield-destroying javelins, right? That guy right there, whoever he hits is insta-killed. Nothing survives these kind of javelin throws. Now they're in the hand-to-hand, and it's going to be good night, Irene. Now, I have a very fast axe I'll be wielding for a lot of these episodes. It's very short. It's not a typical axe. It's a custom axe, but because of that speed, I basically... nobody hand-to-hand can really beat me one-on-one. They're just simply not fast enough. Maybe every once in a while an occasional lord or a legionary with a strong mace, right, swinging a mace really quick might get a shot in, but for the most part, it is just complete dominance on the offensive side. In fact, we'll do a little axe work here. We'll send in both infantry units just to speed this up. We'll send in the horse archers, we'll just fucking wade in here. There's no real tactics necessary here. It's not like I'm concerned about winning. We can just carve these guys apart here. Take off some heads. Get a javelin out right in the face. And you get the idea. In fact, we can even do we can fuck around here and we can stab some guys to get and work with our other javelin skills, right? If you didn't know that, you can actually use your javelins to throw or to attack, right? It's multi-purpose. And basically that's it, right? That was, I don't know, maybe that was 2 or 3 minutes, but that was 120 troops. And as you can see, no losses. This 133 troops is obviously no challenge for us. Now, I've actually had challenges on my channel here where I think I took on 110 troops or something like that on my own, and I was victorious. So it should not be a surprise to anybody that our 40 elite companions here, with some death metal music in the background, utterly destroyed this force of what is it, sturgeons, I guess, right? This is just, it's no contest. This was mostly just an introduction to these fellas. Look, you can see we're still leveling here, right? These guys are still getting better, which is terrifying for the enemy. Some of them are getting dramatically better, right? Like these lower level ones, they're leveling up quite a bit. But this is going to be kind of a fun series. Admittedly, there's not a huge amount of tactics, at least not in this battle, but we will incorporate more and more taxes as we fight larger and larger forces. Kiting is going to be the primary tactic that we engage in, but we will do some distractionary squares. We will do some flanking. We will do some peekaboo ridge. We will do all kinds of fun stuff on here, especially if this is popular. If you enjoy seeing 40 fucking badass superheroes dominate the world, let me know. Please leave comments, all that good stuff. If there's certain challenges you want to see us take on, let me know, right? I'm all for trying various different things here, including a little target practice on my own guys. I'll just be like, no, man, there was an enemy soldier that drilled you in the back with a javelin. I had absolutely nothing to do with that, man. So as you can see, I need a little work on my javelin skills. Though evidently this one fucking horse is going to stall us out here a little bit. Anyways, I appreciate you guys for watching this. This series is going to be fun for me to try. A little side break from the campaign. It's a side break also from the 300 series, which are longer battles. They're more difficult battles. But this is going to be fun. It's going to be something that, whether there's 3 episodes or 15, it should be interesting to see what this group of guys can take on. So thanks again for watching, friends. Please hit the subscribe and like button if you want to see more. I update the channel on a pretty regular basis. And as usual, I will see you guys next time.